BS4 to BS6 emission norms. What exactly does this mean for the environment? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for the cars and motorcycles that we're buying? Lot of big fat questions, and fortunately, two big fat hosts to get you all the answers. Now, we've had the opportunity to talk to a whole bunch of experts, both from the manufacturing industry as well as outside of it, to try and get you the most clear picture about whether you should hang on to the car or bike you have, whether you need to buy a new one, if you should wait for anything. So, let's get straight to it. Enough of an intro. Arun, first of all, what exactly is BS4 and what is BS6? And another question that comes up is, what if I put BS6 fuel into my BS4 car? Any repercussions, damage I need to worry about?
BS6 means cleaner, which means less particulate matter, less toxic gases from the exhaust, and it is kinder to our Mother Earth. To give you an example, Tushar, a BS6 petrol engine is 25% cleaner than a BS4 motor. And in the case of a diesel, it is 80% more cleaner than a BS4 diesel engine. So you can see on the diesels, it has been a bit tough.
True, but I think the concern that comes up for BS6 fuel into BS4 cars, which most of us have, is that what exactly happens? Are there going to be any kind of repercussions? And that's one big question we're seeing. It's the most relevant one. And honestly speaking, no, there's nothing you need to worry about, right? Because BS6 fuel has already been on sale in New Delhi in the NCR region.
It has been available in Delhi
for a while, right? And it's been running in primarily BS4 cars. Remember, BS6 cars, they aren't everywhere just yet. And what you need to bear in mind is that it's a cleaner fuel. It's going to be perfectly fine for your engine. And even if you think about it logically, right? Once the emission norms are mandated, every fuel station is pumping out nothing but BS6 fuel from April 1st, 2020. Majority of cars are still going to be BS4 tuned, 99%. So what? I'm supposed to lock my car up, leave it over there and just walk away, sell it, that's it? Even if you look at a replacement cycle, we're talking about millions of cars. You're going to need a better part of a decade when they're at BS24 or whatever emission norms. By the time you can replace all these cars. So no, that's not going to happen. The petrochemical companies, the manufacturers are all on the same page. Your BS4 car, your BS4 scooter, your BS4 motorcycle, all going to run perfectly fine on BS6 fuel. And I say this as our entire team, we own BS4 cars and motorcycles, and I assure you, none of us have any intention of selling them anytime soon. Now, another question that comes up, especially in the light of new BS6 vehicles being launched already, what if I put BS4 fuel into a BS6 compliant engine? Is that car now BS6 compliant in terms of emissions?
The simple answer to this is no. So for a car or a bike to be BS6 compliant, you need a BS6 engine and BS6 fuel, and when they combine, then they meet the BS6 emissions.
Correct.
So that doesn't work out like that.
But now another question that I've seen is again the question of, does it harm the engine if you put older fuel into what is supposed to be a newer technology? Unfortunately, we're getting some I mean, there's been some kind of ambiguity about this, so I'll give you the references. Now, the parties that are saying that no, there's no issue, obviously includes manufacturers that have introduced their products. It's not they're going to say, hey, I introduced it. No problem, nothing's going to happen. The deal is, Maruti Suzuki is saying, and so is Kia, that if you put BS4 fuel into a BS6 compliant engine, there's going to be absolutely no kind of repercussion, no negative impact. Kia's gone so far as to say that all the engine options that they're offering, the 1.4 turbo, the 1.5 naturally aspirated petrol, as well as the 1.5 turbo diesel, will not be facing any kind of issues because they've tested it for the better part of 1 lakh kilometers on nothing but BS4 fuel. Now, that is one view that we're getting. The contrary view we're getting, oddly enough, is from Kia's sister company, Hyundai. And they're saying that with petrol engines, not really any kind of concern, no repercussions to really be worried about. But in the case of diesels, there will be some kind of wear and tear and some kind of impact on the engine's overall life.
But is it on a shorter basis or on a longer run?
That's where the point comes in. So there's some non-industry experts, and being that not from manufacturer sector, these guys are guys who are involved in the regulation and monitoring of emissions and efficiency overall. And they state that whatever repercussions you're going to see, there is a possibility for that. They're not denying it entirely. But what you're going to see is it's happening over a very long term. So especially in the case of diesels, the diesel particulate filter is one of the parts that's going to get clogged up a bit earlier if you run a BS6 engine with BS4 diesel. So what's going to happen is it gets clogged up earlier, which means the cleaning and replacement cycle is that much quicker.
So basically the service interval might be slightly shorter?
Service interval, or possibly even at the same service, the task being done will be a little bit more intricate, a little bit more detailed, a little bit potentially costly in a car that is BS6 that has been running BS4 fuel. The thing to bear in mind over here is we're talking about really long-term usage, right? Over years and years and kilometers of usage where you've got a BS6 engine running BS4 fuel. And now we're already in September end. It's October. We're talking about another 6 months.
Yeah, because from 1st April, we are going to get BS6 fuels across.
Exactly. So it's not long enough a time for them to really face any kind of major repercussions in that time. So what I'd say is, if you're looking to buy BS4, this is the best possible time because there's no ambiguity. Buy one now, you can own it, no problem whatsoever. With BS6 petrols, the risk is slightly present. It's negligible by what the industry experts are saying. And even in the case of a diesel, you're looking at a turnaround time for BS4 to BS6 fuel in a matter of months. So you don't need to worry about it. Maybe if you want to err on the side of caution, you got an extremely high running diesel, you might want to wait for BS6 fuel to come and become the only fuel that's available.
But if you're in Delhi, it's not a problem.
Exactly. All right, our next question comes in both for and from the enthusiasts as well as the hypermilers. Now, say for example, I've got a BS4 vehicle, car, bike, doesn't matter, and it's been upgraded to BS6. Does that mean something negative for performance and fuel efficiency?
Tushar, now I'm being a bike guy. I have only one example, which is the new Honda Activa 125. So on the Activa 125, the power has reduced by 0.3 PS, but the mileage has increased by 13%.
What?
Yeah. So basically BS6 should ideally mean that better efficiency. But there's a catch. The Activa 125's motor has been designed ground up for a BS6 engine.
Right.
So now if you have an existing motor which will be updated to meet the BS6 norms, we aren't sure whether it will have the same fuel efficiency or there might be some drop.
Exactly. I think that the issue over here is making a blanket statement because I'll draw another example. Okay. We've seen the Swift as well as the Baleno, the Desire and the Baleno both go from BS4 to BS6 already in the petrol guys. Now in the case of the Swift Desire, the efficiency dropped by maybe less than 1 kilometer per liter. Okay. But in the Baleno's case, it went up by over 2 odd kilometers per liter. No difference in power or torque.
So hold on, aren't they being made by the same company?
So yeah, effectively what we can say over here is that we can't make a blanketing statement about power efficiency based on the fuel type that's going in, because it's ultimately going to boil down to the product and the kind of engineering and tuning they go for that. It's like that graph example.
Yes, so basically if you have a 3-bar graph, so emission remains constant, you have power and you have fuel efficiency. So if fuel efficiency goes up, power goes down, power goes up, fuel efficiency goes down. But what graph you think will go up?
Well, especially in the light of the upcoming CAFE norms, I'm willing to bet efficiency.
So another critical question is, Tushar, that will the BS6 fuel be more expensive?
So here's the deal, right? The upgrade cost that's going to be there is not just with the cars with their catalytic reduction, DPF and whatnot. Yeah. It'll also have to be done with the fuel itself, which means at the refinery level, they have to make upgrades. They'll be scaling up certain production and scaling down others, the kind of fuel we already had. Yes. So yes, technically speaking, they do have expenditures at their end, the petrochemical companies.
But the BS6 fuel which is being sold in Delhi, there has been no price hike on that.
Exactly, and that's because of the government, because they have been maintaining the pressure. Right now it's only in one city. Yes. So they're maintaining the pressure to make sure that already sales have been affected by different factors. So they don't want the fuel price to be going up with the emission norms. So right now, because of pressure, the price is kind of under control. It's more or less on par with BS4. We can't say in the long run though, because once it's April 2020, every pump is going to have that and that alone. And basically the deal is this, there is cost over there, chances are they're going to pass it on to you. It's like at the year end, you always get those press releases, right? That input costs have gone up, which is why car prices are going to go up in January. This is an input cost. And petrochemical companies, they are...
But do you think they'll increase the price in April itself or wait for some time and then increase the price?
So chances are that they're going to gradually get into it. It's not like a fortnightly update anymore. It's happening more regularly.
To it and then...
Exactly. So it's going to be a gradual process. They're going to gently walk you into it. And here's the deal. Even if it goes up, and frankly speaking, we aren't at the winning end when it comes to petrol supply, right? We're dependent on imports. I don't see it getting much cheaper. The only thing is I wouldn't attribute any price increase purely to the BS6 upgrades, because the price is a function of the taxes that the government puts down, the BS6 upgrades, as well as the crude oil price, which isn't consistent. So let's hope that the petrochemical companies who are so starved for money can manage. Alright, so that clears up the bit about fuel.
Price hike.
What happens exactly with products in terms of like motorcycles or scooters? How much more expensive do you think they're going to get with
the BS4? Yeah. So again, being a bike guy, I have only one example, which is the Honda Activa 125. And in the case of the Activa 125, the price increment has been from 11% to 15%, as it has 3 variants. And at the Siam convention also, industry heads from the two-wheeler segment, they said the price hike for their products will be between 10 to 15%. And I'm guessing it will be the same for the cars, or it's different?
It's same but different, because like for some examples that we've seen in petrol cars, the changes and upgrades needed aren't that stringent, right? Because petrol it's not that difficult to get it up to the new emission norms. So by what examples we've seen, you're looking at in mass market cars whereabouts of say starting at 10,000 going up to about 20,000 bucks. Like in the Swift, Desire and the Ertiga, we've seen it, right? 10 to 18,000 is what we've seen. In the case of diesels though, not so easy because it's higher in terms of the pollution. So you have to put a lot more fail safes, a lot more upgrades to try and get that down. So you're looking at maybe 80,000 to 1 lakh rupees, whereabouts, not much.
Wow, that's the price of a commuter motorcycle.
Yeah, I'm happy being in the cover of my car during the rains. How's your raincoat holding up, huh? Bike team.
Okay, come on. It's not a Jew shuffle. Let's get back to it.
Right, my bad.
But the most amount of question that we received, Tushar, was, is it the right time to buy a BS4 vehicle or should they wait for a BS6 vehicle? And talking about two-wheelers, I'll say now is the right time to buy a BS4 vehicle, because if you're thinking that you might get a discount like it happened from BS3 to BS4 transition, manufacturers have learned their lesson.
What a wonderful time that was.
Yeah, so many of you got a lot of discounts and a lot of good deals. This time around, manufacturers have said that they want to finish rolling out their BS4 products by end of December and plan to introduce BS6 vehicles by early 2020, say Jan or Feb.
So they want to get ahead of the emission norm implementation itself.
So if you're looking for a discount, now is the right time, because from BS4 to BS6, the prices will go up, and with the festive season coming, you will get a good discount and it's a great time to buy something new.
Exactly. I think there's multiple ways to look at it, right? Number one, BS6 upgrades are going to make cars costlier already. So this is your discount period, so to speak. And unfortunately, we've already seen the downtrend in the manufacturing sector, right? Even Maruti Suzuki has had to cut down on the shifts that their plant had.
And also production of the car.
Exactly. So what's happening is you've got this domino effect that production is being, because demand dropped, dealers weren't stockpiling as many cars. Producers weren't sending those many cars to them in the first place, because otherwise dealers are going to choke on their stockpile, having to give discounts and managing to at best break even. So they've gotten well ahead of the curve. They're not doing that. Some cars, they're barely keeping like 2 or 3 units with them, right? So if you go right now, you can still push for a discount if they have one. And that aside, manufacturers, like you said, they're trying to get ahead of the curve, and they're going to shift their production from BS4 to BS6 pretty soon. Exactly. So now is the best time to get a discount, best season, festive season and all that. So if you want a new vehicle, car, bike, whatever it may be, this is the best time to do it. If you care more about the environment and all, which props to you for doing that, you can wait around for the BS6 emission norms. And chances are that with these BS6 upgrades and the price increase, some manufacturers might throw in a handful of few features.
New features and everything.
Exactly.
Like the case we saw in the Activa 125, it got a external fuel filler cap, a new electric start system, a new console. So they are going to get more features, but if
Costlier as well.
Yes.
Alright, now we've spoken a fair bit about mass market cars and motorcycles, but I remember us talking about big bikes, and sorry, I have the attention span of a goldfish, so I wasn't listening, but I got a lot of confusion between the BS4, BS6, Euro 5, Euro 6. What's the deal there? What's it going to mean for big bikes?
So that's a very interesting question. You see, like Harley Davidson has announced that they will be rolling out the Street 750 BS6 variant next year. But for the big bike manufacturers like Aprilia, Ducati and your Triumph, there is some ambiguity. You see, they have got a 1-year extension in Europe for Euro 5 norms. Now, Euro 5 norms for motorcycle is equivalent to BS6 norms over here.
Okay.
So, Euro 5 and BS6 is same. So, now they have a 1-year extension. So, there is a chance that very few launches might happen next year in the big bike segment. And there might be a slightly lull period for big bikes in India. Okay. So, basically, if you're planning to buy a big bike, this is a good time. Or wait till Feb or March, as dealers will have to clear some stocks out because they won't be able to register them after April.
But I think that also means that whatever discount expectation you have, go in with caution. Don't expect them to, wait around. I like a customer, I'm going to give him a discount. So maybe try for it now, because even dealers are going to wisen up and try and hold back just enough. You can try your luck, but your timing is everything.
Yeah.
So Tushar, going from BS4 to BS6 is basically about fine tuning your motor. So Tushar, you think you or me can do the same sitting in our own garage, tuning an engine to BS6?
Alright, I'll give you the same answer that my mom gave me when I asked her, I was 6 years old, I saw a spider, I asked her, Mom, can I poke it? My mom said, can you? Yes. Should you? No. Because here's the simple deal, manufacturers aren't sitting on piles of cash to just put it into R&D and investment for no reason, right? If there's something that we could have done at home with WD-40 and duct tape, we would have done it. But you can't. And there's a reason for that, because there's a whole bunch of R&D, whole bunch of component sourcing that goes into it, and a lot of approval from the government that also has to come in before you can even go on sale.
So even if you manage to do that somehow,
exactly.
it won't be legal.
So if you do that, you manage to mess up the car's performance, make it catch fire or something, buddy, that's on you. So all we can say is, can you? Yes. Should you? God, no.
And one of the questions that we have got from our audience is, what is AdBlue? What is the interval to refill it, and what happens if you don't refill it on time?
Alright, so I mean, long story short, we can put it this way, that AdBlue is essentially something created by some Professor X, so your car can make the same power but puff less. There you go. So essentially, it's a concoction that's a mix of urea, deionized water, and I don't know, leprechaun tears or something. And effectively, it comes into play in the exhaust cycle, like once the combustion is done, to reduce the emissions that are coming in from your tailpipes, right? So what this is a urea-based concoction that goes into that, and it's a part of your car like any other kind of consumable. It's a liquid. Think of it in the same way as engine oil. So the frequency of changes and all ultimately is decided by your usage.
Okay.
Because if your car is run X kilometers but purely on highway, it'll probably be little less than something that's been stuck in the city and done less kilometers, right? Because the engine's still running. So the replacement cycle, it's variable. And what you need to do about replacement is think of it simply this way. If it's like engine oil, you're not going to run your car on low engine oil or bad engine oil. The same way the replacement cycle is going to be exactly the same for AdBlue. And theoretically speaking, your car should be able to run without it because it's not coming to the main combustion cycle. Okay. But whether or not it's going to have negative repercussions is something you don't want to find out, right? We've seen it in cars like the Mercedes-Benz range, BS6 compliant cars, the Jeep Compass Trailhawk. So something we'll understand and get more clarity on as the services go by. But realistically speaking, just think of it as any other consumable. You won't run on bad oil or no oil, so don't run the car on no or bad AdBlue.
And to the final question, what's after BS6?
So right now there's no additional emission norm as such that's been specified. What they're calling it, the common terminology is BS6.2. But really what it pertains to is something that manufacturers fear far more than even BS6 or even the CAFE norms, and that is RDE, real drive emissions. So
Hold on, so the emission test doesn't happen in the real world?
Exactly. So right now what we're getting in terms of emission tests or even efficiency tests, by and large they're happening in a lab. The idea is that you get a standardized test, the same parameters and the same kind of challenges for every car. So you have a uniform pattern to judge every car on, right? So in real drive emissions, what's going to happen is each car, based on the kind of engine it has, the kind of class it falls into, is going to go under real world tests. So it's going to be sitting in traffic the same way you and I do. It's going to go up inclines, certain speeds of acceleration, idling, unpaved roads. So there's so many variety of conditions that will never be uniform. So for that, the challenge is that manufacturers, to try and meet RDE, have to be possibly twice or thrice more stringent with their lab tests.
Yeah.
So that's where the challenge comes in, and which is why that we've seen a lot of rhetoric about electric cars becoming commonplace. But the real idea is RDE is going to make it so difficult to get manufacturing a car that's going to match up to the new emission norms, so much more difficult, so much more expensive, costs that will be passed on to customers and discourage purchases, that manufacturers themselves will automatically start leaning towards greener tech, hybrids, PHEVs and pure electric vehicles as well.
So basically BS 6.2 is a death nail kind of a thing for ICE engines?
Shub shub bolo. I definitely don't want to hear that ever again. But realistically speaking, I don't see that happening. Yes, it'll make it slightly costlier to develop and as well as purchase the car itself. Less desirable, yes, but I don't think it can be taken out of the picture entirely. Like right now we're sitting in this studio, I don't know when it's going to be a power cut again. So they can't rule out fossil fuels entirely. Fossil fuels are involved in too many things. You can't just kill that industry outright. There are component industries that are also linked to the cars themselves. So no, it's not a death knell, but yes, by and large, in the future, for every country, for every continent, for everything in the world, you're gonna see for emission norms that petrol and diesel cars will get less desirable, if not eliminated in the near future. So, hope that this entire video and banter between us two was able to answer your questions about BS4 cars, BS6, emission norms, vehicles, everything in between.
Also fuel.
Exactly. So, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments down below. We have several social media handles with lakhs and millions of followers, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever it is you want to reach out to us, go ahead and do that, and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions for you. For now, thanks a ton for watching and see ya.